Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on YouTube. Thanks for watching. I appreciate that also. And two, in addition to that as well, thumbs up challenge today. Hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Blah, blah, blah. College football videos all the time. Live shows. All kinds of pointless stuff on here. Thumbs up challenge going on. What was the last video? 375 likes. You guys knocked that out in about an hour and a half. 400 likes this time. 400 likes on this video. And I'll do another one. We're previewing some of the biggest, well, not really previewing, giving you my thoughts on some of the biggest non-conference college football games of the 2022 season. I've done Ohio State and Notre Dame yesterday, earlier today, Florida and Utah. And I'm kind of surprised, but by popular demand, this was the most upvoted comment on the last video. Y'all want to hear about Arkansas versus Cincinnati. Now, I'm excited about this game. I think it's a great matchup and a very interesting matchup in week one. I'm kind of surprised that was the one that you guys wanted to see next. But anyway, there's a ton of great non-con games too. So I don't know how long this is going to go with these thumbs up. But let's get this one to 400 so I can do another one. Here's a graphic on the screen real quick that I found. Is this from Fox Sports or Yahoo? I think it's from Fox Sports. What they think the top 10 non-conference games are. If there's one of those you want to hear me talk about, just comment down below. And for the next one, we'll see what you guys want to hear. But Arkansas versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati at Arkansas. This is a home game for Arkansas. Now, you remember last year, Cincinnati played two Power 5 teams, right? They played Indiana in the regular season, and then they had the big one, the one that was circled, at Notre Dame. Of course, they won both of them. Indiana ended up being terrible. Now, heading into last season, Indiana was supposed to be pretty good, and that looked like it would be a pretty good matchup. But Indiana ended up being one of the worst teams in the Power 5. That's how they wound up over here on the table of disappointment. There's the 12 most disappointing teams in college football right there. Did a video on that a few days ago. They were 2-10. Indiana was. I don't think they won a single Big Ten game, or maybe they won one. They were horrible. But Cincinnati's got Indiana again this year, and their biggest non-con game this year on the road at Arkansas. I don't think at Arkansas is as big of a game, or they're definitely not as big of a name as last year's marquee Power 5 game that Cincinnati had on the road against Notre Dame. But Arkansas has been trending up under new head coach Sam Pittman, heading into his third year now. Arkansas had one of the best seasons last year they've had in at least the last 10 years. And the turnaround really at Arkansas under Sam Pittman over the last few years has been nothing short of miraculous. Arkansas doesn't have like the richest or best tradition to pull from. Recruiting, they're behind the 8 ball. Arkansas is not a state that's loaded with top quality Division I football talent. So they've got to go into Texas, which everyone and their brother goes into Texas, so that's not easy to recruit there to try to get some recruits. They've got to go into Louisiana, which is pretty much owned by LSU with a few exceptions every single year. So Arkansas, Arkansas's got a lot of disadvantages. There's a lot of built-in advantages that other schools have that Arkansas doesn't have. And Sam Pittman had never been a coach before and inherited what was at the time the worst team by far in the SEC. They had won something like 3 or 4 games total in the couple of years before Sam Pittman got there. He's done a great job turning them around. Of course, Cincinnati's got Luke Fickell, who every single time there's a coach opening at any legitimate top 25 Power 5 school, Luke Fickell's name gets attached to it for obvious reasons. I think he's a great coach too. It'll be curious to see what Luke Fickell does if he decides to stay in Cincinnati or what, because of course they're joining the Big 12, and the Big 12 is losing Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, Cincinnati probably, the minute they join the Big 12, is the favorite in the Big 12. He'll be the highest paid coach of the Big 12 too, Luke Fickell will. If Cincinnati was in the Big 12 right now, he'd be the 3rd highest paid coach, only behind Venables at Oklahoma and Sarkisian at Texas. So Cincinnati's a school that is taking football seriously in their steps towards joining the Power 5. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But this is going to be a good game. Now, Cincinnati, they made the college football playoff last year, and that was great. Didn't go the way they hoped it would against Alabama. And, of course, just like clockwork, you had all these people come out, oh, I knew it. Cincinnati had no business being in the playoffs because they got blown out. Every playoff game is a blowout. Go back and watch them since the playoffs started in 2014. What have we had? How many years of playoffs is that? 14, 15, 16, 17. 18, 19, 20, 21. 8 years of playoffs. That's 16 playoff games. 14 of them have been blowouts. I mean, Georgia blew out Michigan. Does that mean Michigan didn't deserve to be in the playoffs? They won the Big Ten. They were in the toughest conference in football last year, which was the Big Ten East. And yes, the Big Ten East was better than the SEC West last year, due mostly in part to the fact that Auburn and LSU were complete dumpster fires. What was the second best team in the West? Try to answer that question. Was it Texas A&M just because they beat Alabama? They were a 4-loss team. Was it Ole Miss? Alabama beat them by 21 points. So anyway, yes, the Big Ten East was the best. Michigan won it. Yes, of course Michigan deserved to be in the playoffs. So just because Cincinnati got blown out didn't mean they didn't deserve to be there. They got in. They got their opportunity. They lost. I mean, it sucks for them, but it is what it is. They get an opportunity this year to try to make a return trip to the college football playoffs. Going to be hard to do for Cincinnati. They lose Desmond Ridder, their QB. And you know what might be worse than that for Cincinnati? Cincinnati had 2 defensive backs that were absolutely elite and would have started anywhere in America. They're gone off to the NFL. They'll both be taken in the first 2 rounds. One of them probably taken in the first round. They had one guy that didn't give up a touchdown his entire college career. I mean, Cincinnati's secondary was legit last year. Why do you think Alabama chose to run the ball up and down the field against Cincinnati instead of throwing it? Because they couldn't throw it on Cincinnati. That's why. And that's not a knock on Alabama or Bryce Young. I mean, they had Jameson Williams in that game. Look what Cincinnati did to him. Held him to, I think, 4 or 5 catches for about 50 yards or something. So Cincinnati's pass secondary was elite last year. They're losing 2 of their best players. And unfortunately for Cincinnati, they're not Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State or any of these teams that recruit in the top 10 every single year that can just backfill talent every time somebody leaves. It's going to be very tough for Cincinnati to have the same type of secondary in this coming up season 2022 that they had in 2021 and really going all the way back to 2020 when they only had they were undefeated, made the Peach Bowl and lost to Georgia in the New Year's Six game. So they've been really good the last couple of years. There's no reason to think they're going to fall off the face of the earth this year, but I do not think Cincinnati will be as good this year as they were the last 2 years. Desmond Ridder had a ton of experience at quarterback, and while he's probably not, going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft or anything like that, he was a solid quarterback for them. And like I said, experience more than anything else really helped Cincinnati out a lot last year. I just think they lose a lot. Now, what does that mean for the Arkansas game? What are they going to look like in 2022 coming off their best season in over a decade? Well, they lose Burks, that wide receiver, who, again, is a guy that would have started anywhere in America. He's unbelievable. He'll be starting in the NFL this coming year, no doubt about it. He's like 6'6". I mean, the guy is huge, catches everything thrown his way. Now, the guy throwing the ball to him, KJ Jefferson, he'll be back. So the quarterback returns. That's good. They lose a couple of key pieces on defense. Do they bring back Bumper, Poole? Now, I want to know who names these people. Alabama's got a guy named Kool-Aid, don't they? I'm pretty sure. Alabama's got a guy named Kool-Aid, or Texas A&M, whoever it is. Somebody's got a guy named Kool-Aid. Arkansas's got a linebacker named Bumper, Poole. Come on. Anyway, he comes back. But you know what? Arkansas went out and did a pretty good job this year in the transfer portal. They brought in Jaden Haselwood from Oklahoma. This guy was like the number 1 or number 2 rated wide receiver in all of high school in recruiting coming out a couple of years ago. Was at Oklahoma. Of course, their whole staff left, went to Southern Cal. Jaden Haselwood's from the state of Georgia. Kind of hoped he'd transfer back to Athens, but as it turns out, he's an elite wide receiver and a little bit too smart to waste his talents in Athens, Georgia. So he chose to go to Arkansas. So they picked up a really, really good. You know what this reminds me of? Kentucky had that kid. I'm drawing a blank on his name now. I can't believe this. He's a 5-star. He went to Nebraska. Gee, what were you thinking, son? Left there, transferred to Kentucky last year, and had an amazing year for them. What is his name? Little bitty fella. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. Anyway, Haselwood, same type of thing. He's going to be, he might be better than Burks. I'm not making it up. He's that good. He's got that kind of talent. So you combine him with KJ Jefferson, who, of course, KJ Jefferson can run the ball, too. One of the best running backs in the SEC, or quarterbacks in the SEC when it comes to running the ball. And he'll run you over. He plays with kind of like a Tim Tebow style. He's kind of like a human pinball. He likes bumping into things. KJ Jefferson, but he can throw the ball, too. Of course, it didn't hurt to have Burks last year. Now you got Haselwood coming in. And on defense, now I'm not trying to say these guys are all Americans or future first-round NFL draft picks or anything like that, but they're huge upgrades over what Arkansas had on their roster. They get Drew Sanders from Alabama, a linebacker. Now, this guy played at Alabama. He's not some guy that was 8th string and never saw the field. He was in the rotation at linebacker. He transfers out to Arkansas. They bring in a couple of disgruntled LSU defensive guys. And look, I don't care what you think about LSU, how much you hate them, love them, have no opinion of them at all, whatever the case. Recruiting is not the issue at LSU, particularly defensive recruiting. They are loaded year in and year out with NFL players on that team. Check the draft every single year. So these are huge upgrades defensively for Arkansas over what they had available on the roster. Again, not out here trying to convince anybody this means Arkansas is going to have the best defense we've ever seen or that these players are going to be All-Americans or first-round draft picks. The point of the transfer portal is to upgrade immediately, right? Recruiting is kind of like, recruiting is based off of potential, generally. The transfer portal, yes, potential has something to do with it, but you've got some actual college film and tape you can look at with these people to see what they've done at the college level. And in the case of these transfers, you're talking about Alabama and LSU. So, again, these are upgrades over what Arkansas had to start with. So I think this is going to be a really interesting game. It helps for Arkansas to have it at home. Cincinnati has not fared well historically against the SEC. Now, I will admit that Cincinnati is kind of at its peak right now, although it's not like this is the only time Cincinnati's ever been good. Believe it or not, Cincinnati was pretty good under our old buddy Butch Jones. That's right. Before Lyle was in Knoxville, floppy top, giving his brick-by-brick speeches and declaring themselves NCAA NASCAR champions for winning a football game at a racetrack in Week 2 against an unranked Virginia Tech team. He was busy leading Cincinnati to 10 wins a year. And, of course, Brian Kelly coached at Cincinnati, too, before Notre Dame. So, I think that's the first time Cincinnati's ever been any good. But, clearly, last season was the closest Cincinnati's ever come to winning a national title, making college football playoff. But this is going to be a really good game. A really good game. I'm excited to see it. But Cincinnati has not fared well against the ACC or the SEC. There's something like 6-36, I believe is what it is. 6-36 all time against the SEC. And half of those wins are against Kentucky. And, you know, Kentucky right now is a pretty good team, but historically they're terrible, and they've still been able to beat Cincinnati the majority of the time. I'm trying to... when was the last time Cincinnati beat an SEC team? It was a Liberty Bowl. Might have been Kentucky. They beat in a Liberty Bowl 10 years ago or something like that. But, of course, they played an SEC team last year in the first round of the playoffs, Alabama, and lost. They played an SEC team at the end of the 2020 season in the Peach Bowl, Georgia, and they lost. So, historically, not great against the SEC, but they're a pretty good team right now. But so is Arkansas. For Cincinnati, this is a must-win game, clearly. If they've got any hopes and dreams or aspirations of trying to make it back to the college football playoff for the second year in a row, which I think is a huge long shot, they've got to win this game. If they lose this game, it doesn't matter what they do the rest of the season. They're not going to get in. It's just, you know, it doesn't matter whether we think that's fair or whatever. If they don't win this game week 1, they're not getting in. Now, for Arkansas, I know everybody is undefeated at the start of the season, and why can't Arkansas make the college football playoff? Okay, I get it. Arkansas is not making the college football playoff. They could win this game, no doubt about it. They're not good enough or deep enough to make it through an SEC schedule undefeated. I mean, if they beat Cincinnati week 1, which they very well could do at home, I mean, they still have to play Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Auburn, on and on and on down the line. That's a tall task. That's a tall task for Arkansas. So, but, Arkansas could, in my opinion, make a run at a New Year's Six Bowl without question. They could make a run at a New Year's Six Bowl. I think Auburn is circling the drain with the whole Brian Harsin situation. LSU, you don't know what you're going to get there. Year 1, Brian Kelly. They're coming off 2 horrible seasons. LSU fired our buddy Ed Orgeron. Again, they have a tough schedule. Lots of movement in the transfer portal there, but they do recruit well, so we'll see. But, you got to figure between the college football playoffs and the New Year's Six, you're going to have 3 or 4 SEC teams involved in that. There's no reason Arkansas can't have a goal of being one of those 3 or 4 teams that makes it, maybe not to the playoffs, but to a New Year's Six game, right? Georgia will be the favorite in the East. It's a pretty drastic drop-off after that. I don't think anybody would be predicting right now for Florida or Tennessee or South Carolina to make a New Year's Six game. Kentucky came close last year to making a New Year's Six game, and they'll be pretty good again this year. So maybe Georgia and Kentucky in the East, the teams with the 2 best chances of making playoffs or New Year's Six. And in the West, of course, Alabama, maybe Texas A&M. But then I got to think you're leaning Arkansas or LSU as that sort of 4th team from the SEC. So a big game for Arkansas, too. You don't want the embarrassment of losing to a group of 5 team, even if it's one of the quote-unquote elite group of 5 teams. You just don't want that embarrassment. And you don't want to start your season out that way, right? This will be a good game. I'll be curious to see how Cincinnati looks without that quarterback, Desmond Ridder, who's been there forever, and without those NFL studs in the secondary, knowing that they just don't recruit at the level of the traditional playoff caliber teams. And year 3, Sam Pittman, Arkansas, been headed this direction ever since Sam Pittman got there. Can they take the next step this year and get to 10, 11 wins and make a New Year's Six bowl game? You'll find out a lot about both of these teams in this first game. You know, this isn't a situation where somebody's playing like the Helen Keller School of the Blind week 1. You go out, you win 100-0, and you still don't know if you have a good team or not because you played a terrible team. You'll find out a lot about both of these teams in this week 1 game. Anyway, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, 400 thumbs up, and we'll do it again with another 2022 non-con preview. Comment down below. Let me know what game it is you'd like to hear me talk about. If you see someone already left a comment, hit the thumbs up next to it. That's how I'm going to choose the video, whichever one has the most upvotes. All right, hope you guys are enjoying your weekend, and have a good morning.